Sam, you have a lot of debate in our culture today over homosexuality, and the divide could not get any sharper than it is. You have, on the left, you have a lot of folks saying that people are born with these desires and these appetites, and therefore it's not wrong to pursue a homosexual lifestyle. And then you have on the right, the religious right, a lot of people beating the drum that it's people aren't born this way, that it's nothing more than a choice, and that therefore it is wrong for them to pursue this lifestyle. How do we think through that type of stuff, and how do we make sense over what might be going on in a person's life from birth onward?
Sure. You know, it's interesting in this dimension because I really think that both sides are making a point that must be included in the explanation of homosexuality. You know, on the one hand, as Christians, we believe that everything is broken. The doctrine of sin tells us that everything, biology, psyche, soul, relationships, family, everything is
Fall
broken.
hits everything, yeah.
And so on the one hand, might there be some biogenetic factors that contribute to homosexuality? And the answer to that is there probably are, but notice that what we're saying is not so much causing homosexuality, because there must usually be a variety of other factors that are operative in order to have that outcome. So is there some biogenetic component that may be contributory? Most likely, and probably boys that are more aesthetic and less athletic, less aggressive, more artistic, boys that have that softer, kind of more aesthetic temperament, there does seem to be a preponderance of that temperament that comes down at the end of the day, ends up with some type of same-sex attraction. Not everyone, but then you add in a variety of other factors that may have something to do with the degree of identification with their father, their treatment by their peers, the extent to which they feel like they fit in, especially with other boys.
What kinds of things they succeed in.
Exactly. So there are a whole nexus of factors that are implicated in the development of same-sex attraction. Jumping back on the other side of the fence, do men choose to be attracted to other men? And the answer to that is 98% of the time, no. It's usually, as it is for you and I don't remember choosing to be attracted to the opposite sex. I really discovered it, and I still remember that day. It was bingo, it was just there. And likewise in the development of same-sex attraction, it's usually discovered, and especially for conservative men, whether they're Muslim or Christian or Jewish, with horror. It's a very, very unpleasant discovery to find there's something wrong with my sexual compass.
Okay, so most of them don't consciously make a decision then that, hey, I'm going to be attracted to the opposite sex?
Very, very, very rare.
Okay.
We do tend to see that a little bit more in lesbianism among women.
Okay.
But even there, only with maybe 20, 30, 40% of lesbians would say, I consciously chose this. But with men, maybe a couple percent. Very rare do we find men that would say, I chose this. But in fact, as I said, especially those raised in conservative cultures or religious influences, they discover it with horror. It's a terrible, terrible day to realize, my sexual compass is broken.
Okay. So discovered, maybe not chosen, but does that give rise to moral questions and pushback? So for example, could someone say, well, gosh, if they discover that they are this way, this isn't a choice that they made, does that then give that man or that woman the right or permission or license to pursue that lifestyle? How do we think about that?
That's a great question, and I think we have to go back to our doctrine of sin, which tells us that everything is broken. And just because something is biological doesn't mean it is therefore good.
Okay.
So that it may have some biogenetic components in its final eventuation doesn't therefore then mean that I'm not responsible for it.
Okay.
And it doesn't mean that it's good or right.
Okay.
But instead, I think we have to go back to the doctrine of creation, how God made us and designed us for one another, man and woman, made in His image. Doctrine of creation tells us much more about this than I think sometimes we think about. And so that kind of sets the groundwork, the structure for sexuality is given to us by God in the fact that He made two sexes. And without which their interaction, if that did not occur, the human race would be over. So it's very clear from God's design that we're made for one another sexually for the opposite sex. That complementarity is clear and obvious in a variety of ways.